Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to anyone who's watching us live on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and wherever you're joining us from, whatever time zone, whatever country, city you're joining us from. Thanks for coming to our channel and checking out our video. Today's event and live coding session is going to be a very interesting one because we're going to be talking about different technologies, different functionalities and features of the Solace broker, and different ways we can integrate Solace with different technologies. Now, before we get started, for anyone who's joining us new, this is part of our series of live coding events. We've hosted a couple of live coding events where we basically talk about different technologies or talk about different integrations with the Solace technologies, and even have kind of like a panel-like discussion with other people with Solace or outside the Solace. So it's a kind of a very interactive, informal session. For those of you who watch our previous events, welcome back. Thanks for coming in. Now, as people are coming into the channel and into this video, I'd like you to please let us know in the chat, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn. Let us know where you're joining us from, what city, what country, what state you're joining us from. We usually have people from around the world joining us globally. So I'll start. I'm joining from Ottawa, Canada. It is very cold today. I'm just looking outside the window and it's snowing a lot. My name is Tamimi, by the way, if I haven't said that earlier. So again, please make this session very interactive. Put in the comments section below any questions that you have, or any or like where you're joining us from. As people are trickling into this video, into this live session, I'd like to quickly tell you that we'll be hosting more of these events and talking about it on our Solace community. So if you go to www.solace.community and join our Solace community over there, interact with us. We have a bunch of different forums. People ask questions about Solace or about any other kind of technology. So feel free to join us there. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump right into the topic of today's event. So as you can tell from the title of the event, it's called Event Enabling Your Serverless Architecture. So we're seeing people trickling in. Mark from Orlando, Aaron from Singapore. Thanks everybody for coming in. So from the topic of the this event, which is Event Enabling Your Serverless Architecture, I want to know from any of the audience attending right now, have you ever used any function as a service? Have you ever used a serverless architecture before? Whether you used Azure functions, Lambda functions on AWS, or any similar kind of function as a service or serverless architecture, let us know in the chat as well down below. I'd like to kind of get a sense on of like who are the people kind of like attending, if you have already pre-existing knowledge in this kind of architecture, and kind of we're going to be talking about how you can event enable this architecture that you already have. And towards the middle, halfway through the event, we'll be doing a live coding session. So it's going to be a pretty interactive session. We have a whiteboard. You can't see it right now because I'm not showing you the whiteboard yet, but we have a whiteboard. We're going to be whiteboarding some ideas, and hopefully we'll be live coding as well, and we'll see if things work in live demos. So without further ado, today I have two guests. I have Douglas, Wong, and Leah, who work at Solace. I'll get them into the stage. We'll have a little interaction conversation, and we'll get started with a live coding session. So I'm going to start with Douglas. Douglas, how's it going? How are you?
Good. Good morning, Tamimi. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in the same city as yours. I'm from Ottawa,
Okay.
Canada. I should
Yeah.
say heavy snow outside, but
Yeah. So you probably just got hit by the snowstorm. Yeah.
yeah, 25 centimeters just for everybody's
Uh,
information.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna go sledding or like build a snowman right after today. It's at least like to get me active, to stay active. Are you doing anything to stay active in the
Oh
winter?
yeah. Well, after this, I'm going to shovel the snow. It's going to be my driveway, my neighbor's driveway, and so on. So
Right. Okay. That's good. That's
that's
good.
my
Well,
1 hour activities for sure.
1 hour activity. Well, if anybody joining us right now, let us know what you're doing for activities during the winter as well. I will get to your comments. I will be able to see them. So let's dig right into the core of today's events,
Hmm.
Douglas. So I know a lot of people kind of from either software developers or architects, they heavily rely on cloud technologies and cloud architectures, whether it's using Azure or AWS. They use different functionalities of these cloud providers, and kind of their main core businesses or services that they provide heavily relies on this. Now, why would someone, whether they're an architect or a developer, kind of event enable their cloud infrastructure, and why would they want to integrate any cloud platform to an event-driven architecture? Kind of like what are the advantages for this?
Yeah, good question. So the main use case that we have found by we're talking to a lot of customer is that
Hmm.
most of the time they're in the middle of that journey. So they might not have everything on the cloud and they have something that is still on-prem. So by saying that, they often have information that they like to keep in on-prem and they like to have certain things that is going onto the cloud services.
Hmm.
And beyond that, let's say they want to do some machine learning coordination on like diapers and beer, like for example, or anything that they want to get more insight information from the cloud services that they're not going to build it in on-prem. So one of the key things is that our broker will be able to allow these kind of activities, streaming all those events by
Hmm.
topic. So very simply, you just say, I want all the, let's say, transaction information to go out to the cloud. And then when I use a function, I even just imported that logic into the cloud so that I don't have to worry about all the server infrastructure things that I'm dealing with internally. And that's one of the main
Hmm.
things is that people want to just extract particular specific types of information into the cloud and do something further there. And that's the main
Hmm.
driver of a lot of the use case that we've been listening. And our today's topic is perfect for that. Is how you can very quickly leverage that functionality within our broker.
Right, right. One thing that I wanted to kind of point out, when people heavily work in the event-driven domain,
Hmm.
they're particularly working with a lot of protocols and APIs in streaming, like streaming protocols, whether
Yeah.
it's an MQTT protocol or AMQP protocol, even kind of like using our native APIs, like the Solace messaging format, native APIs, and interacting with cloud architectures and cloud services is, I would say, almost 95% rest heavy. Kind of like there's a lot of like rest interaction. So what are kind of the different, like how would the PubSub Plus event broker kind of integrate or allow this protocol translation within the broker?
Yeah, right on. Like our broker, one of the key value proposition that our customer uses it is that we actually takes care of all those protocol translation. And
Hmm.
within at
Hmm.
the end of the day, these like as a picture that you're showing now, it supports all of these protocol and pointed out to the top right where we have the rest red highlighted is
Hmm.
that we translate it back into the REST protocol, and then we can, as you say, 90% of all those services take REST as a protocol. So this makes it very easy that you have a common denominator across your AWS. If you have multi-cloud, Azure and Google, that all just
Hmm.
talk about the
Hmm.
same thing. And then within our broker, you don't have to worry about all your messaging. Let's say you have your IoT devices using MQTT coming
Right.
from the farm or whatever that device coming in. And our
Hmm.
broker just makes it very easy as a hub in the middle to do the interconnection between all of these things. And all you have to like really set it up once, as we're going to talk about, is how you're going to translate that into REST, and then we would make use of our component within the broker to make all those connection integration into the cloud services. And that's just the key about how we enable and continue to improve our brokers to do that.
Right. Very, very neat. One feature, or like one functionality that that is involved within the PubSub Plus event broker is our REST Delivery Point. So I'm going to share my screen again as well on that point. So kind of to show the things that I'm talking about. So if you go to our kind of Solace docs and look at the kind of REST interaction, what Douglas was talking about is kind of this feature, more like having any REST application that you have. If you can interact with the Solace broker, you kind of get exposure to all the different protocols that are supported with the Solace broker, similar to what I've shown kind of here in this picture. This is kind of like one thing you can do with this.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so this is great. It's I'm glad we kind of got the chance to have this introduction. As people are joining, and I'm gonna give kind of like a quick shout out. So everybody is joining us as well from different parts of the world. Let us know where you're joining us from. So 2 questions for you. First of all, is like, let us know where you're joining us from. And the second question is, have you ever used any serverless architecture, or function as a service architecture in your applications, or in your team, or in your company, or even on the side for like side projects? Have you ever dabbled with Lambda functions or Azure functions, kind of to see the bit of interaction? And I see kind of like more and more people are trickling in from different platforms that we have, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. So this is it's great to see people coming in, which is great. So I would say, Douglas, as people are coming in, let's start kind of discussing a demo, or like an idea of a demo that we can do. And to do this, I would like to bring Leah to the stage, and we'll have a bit of a chat with Leah. So Leah, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Tamimi? Hi.
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us today. Where are you joining us from?
Thanks for having me. I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, a little less snow than you guys seem to have.
So are you shoveling today?
No, I don't know if you can see out my window. It's fairly blared out because of the light, but no here. I don't think I'll be shoveling today.
Oh, you got shower going, yeah.
What's up?
No, you might get shower later, but I don't know. The vortex has been hitting Ottawa and the Canadian regions very heavily. Yeah, we have been having a lot of snowball. Yeah,
we did thankfully get some rain. It's Bay Area gets
needed.
Drought, so yeah, rain in this time of year is pretty common. So I'm pretty happy that it's been raining on and off. Yeah.
No, we don't. we're just getting snow, more and more snow. But it's okay. I'm actually looking at the good side of it. I am enjoying the snow. I get to do a lot of like snow winter activities, which is great. I know some people here on the chat, they're saying that they're joining us from Toronto. So they're doing a bit of shoveling and winter activities. So to dig into the today's topic. So Leah, while you were backstage, you probably heard us talking about kind of the REST delivery point functionality of the broker, and kind of why is it important for people to integrate their cloud infrastructure, or the cloud microservices or applications, into an event-driven architecture, an EDA architecture. And then Douglas talked about a bit our remote delivery point, and also kind of we have, so our remote delivery point is kind of one REST delivery point is kind of like one of the different functionalities we can do. I want to share my screen shortly to kind of show the different connectors that we can do in with our broker. Douglas, do you want to talk a bit about our connector hub?
Absolutely. So this is our Solace.com connector hub. So we have actually just launched this a couple months ago. Really, it's the purpose to showcase all of our connectors, including the one that we're going to talk about from the REST Delivery Point. And on this page, you can actually search on anything that is both our partner integrated or broker integrated or even sometimes it's just we have an extension within our broker. Let's say we search for Azure, and then once you see it, it will be all the Azure functions or Azure services that you can make a connection very quickly. And if you want to click onto, sometimes there's a video on how to, if you click on any of them, basically it just drives you to like information that we have already, but this becomes a go-to spot so that for anybody that is interested in terms of learning how much our broker can integrate in the arms that we can reach out to, this would be a perfect place. So I would always recommend to start here. If you have some project that you have been thinking about, you don't know whether we do something with that one, like just come in here, do a quick search, and if there's anything that you don't you cannot find, and at the bottom of this page there's a contact with us, so that you can actually just reach out to us about how you can find out, if there's a connector already on the horizon, or there's something that we have not developed. And me and myself as a product manager, we will be getting back to you about what we can do to proceed that. So I encourage everybody to come in here. I always tell the support team to make sure the references to the customer, because that's always a good spot to really just make sure that people know what they're doing. Yeah, and we update this frequently. Yeah,
great. One question we got from Twitter talking about kind of the connector that we're going to be talking about today. Is it used to send messages from the broker? And Manish, thanks for asking this question. And in fact, today's demo will be showing you how events, like let's say you already have an already existing stream of events, how can you trigger any serverless function, and today we'll be using Azure functions using kind of the remote delivery point. So what I would like to do as well, so like as people are coming in, remember to let us know where you're joining us from. So Leah and I will be kind of demoing a pretty cool demo on how to fire off or trigger Azure functions, and you could integrate or put any business logic you want in your Azure functions. Let's say you want to populate a Power BI dashboard with the data that you get. How you could do this with an event-driven architecture. So Leah, one of the things that we have is if you go to marketplace.solace.dev, this is a marketplace that we're constantly kind of like working on and improving and adding different functionalities with. But in this marketplace, we have a stream of sample data. So for example, we have a stream of New York modern taxi data. New York, like this is kind of like fake data that we pump into a publicly available broker, and anybody could go in there and connect to that broker and consume this stream of information. I want to point out that the documentation, the docs of this stream of data was automatically generated with async API. So all what we had to do is kind of generate the spec for this and showing the connection parameters and all the different things you can do, and we automatically generated this with async API. So just to give you a quick overview on this stream of data, kind of this is the credentials and string information that you can use to connect to the publicly available broker. If you scroll down as well, you get to see what are the different topics that are available that you can subscribe to, and the payload of the data that you get once you kind of subscribe to that, once you connect to that broker and subscribe to that particular topic. So for example, if you subscribed to that topic, you might get a payload data showing the ride ID, different kind of like the driver, the speed, the type of the car that the driver is driving, the passenger. So for example, here there's a passenger called Tamimi Ahmad who is driving with that particular driver. So what I would like to show is, let's go ahead and connect to that broker and see the type of data that's coming in. What do you think, Leah?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We can see the stream of data coming in, see that real-time feed. It gives you a bit of an idea of the type of data that you could maybe move to the cloud if you're not already, and use in these cloud-native services, and use this REST Delivery Point feature in the that we're going to show off today, how you can translate that data through there.
I want to talk about, so just at the same point about the topic. I think one of the other thing that we mentioned very powerful for the plus broker is that we can actually cater the topic. You don't have to send everything. Most of the time, people only in a certain aspect of those topics. Like let's say on an e-commerce website, I don't want to. If I only want to know Black Friday, all of my transaction on a particular product, I can just send that to the function. Like the key thing is that you don't have to send everything, and a lot of times people worry about the cost on the server side, which is in the cloud, and then you'll be, oh well, how many things I'm processing? And our broker has a really good fine-grained filtering of the topic. You can basically do anything. You can do anything on the transaction. You can only do transaction, and then from North America. So these are just, I just want to put that one out, like that's one of the key things people like.
Right. That's actually a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, Douglas. Thanks for mentioning this. And that, like, if you go to like Solace wildcards, if you just search for Solace wildcards, and you could leverage the wildcard functionality of the broker, and kind of like we have kind of these two wildcards, and you can use and leverage it in your filtering side of things, that even before you go to triggering. So before we get into our whiteboard session, I want to show you kind of how we can connect to this broker. So if you go to Solace.dev and get started with Docker, we provide you with a publicly available publisher subscriber, where you can, like with the subscriber, you could put the credentials of any broker that you want, and you can subscribe to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the credentials of this broker. Mind you, over here that I am using WebSocket to connect to the Solace broker, basically. So I'm going to be using a WebSocket URL to connect to the publicly available broker. So here's this. The username is public taxi data. And anyone on the stream right now, on the call, who's watching us, you could really do this and connect to this publicly available broker. Everything we're showing you right now is publicly available, and you can go ahead and do it. So I'm going to connect. So you can see that here I am connected to that broker. So I want to subscribe to this particular topic. So let's say events are being published and streamed to that topic. So just to show you that this is real data, I'm going to leverage at least one wildcard, one Solace wildcard, which is the greater than. If I subscribe, so you can see here that data is flowing in super quick and super fast. And this is part of the payload. So the topics that, like, this data is being published on this particular topic based on what we defined over here. And the payload of the data is similar to this payload that is defined over here. So if you come back to this, we can see that the payload of the data that is being streamed into that publicly available broker is there. So great. So now we've kind of... a
quick note on that. If you want to pop back over to the New York City Taxi Co. page there, the wildcard you use, the greater than, lets you actually subscribe to everything after, ride updated version 1. So we're getting all data about the ride status, driver ID, and as Douglas was mentioning, you can fine tune that. So if you're interested in just receiving data on a particular driver ID or a specific, latitude and longitude, you can do that with the use of the other wildcard as well, the star, which is per level. So between flashes. So we're in today, and what you subscribed to was basically all that data about the ride being updated.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. So now we kind of set the stage to what's already available. Let's go ahead and kind of delve into the meat of this event, which is event enabling serverless architecture. So for this, what I will be doing, I'm gonna bring up a whiteboard, and we'll do kind of some like whiteboarding session in here. In the meantime, if Leah, you could kind of give us an idea on like this already existing broker, you're going to spin up a broker on your end. How are you going to connect these two brokers together?
That's a great question. So to give you a little bit of context, that New York City Modern Taxi Code data is being published on a broker that is, I think, 9.3 or so. So it's a little bit older broker. Currently, we're on 9.8. And that broker is running in Azure East, so on the East Coast. What I have set up for this demo today is a event broker hosted in Azure West, and it's, of course, a 9.8. We do want to look at that new connector feature. And what I've done is created an event mesh or linked them with our dynamic message routing feature. What that does is it basically establishes a connection between these two brokers. You can add more brokers in there as you please. And the dynamic aspect is if I subscribe to the taxi data on my Azure West broker, because it's being published in East, and because I've now subscribed to that data, we're going to move that data from Azure East to Azure West, where I can consume it as I please. So that's actually already set up today, and I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like when we dive into the configuration.
Perfect.
It's like Tamimi's ready the fancy whiteboard here.
Right. Yeah, I got my fancy whiteboard with my markers. So let's kind of visualize what we're doing here. Come on, focus.
Yeah, autofocus.
Okay, there you go. This is perfect. So while it's focusing, what I will be doing is moving my hand so the focus could get there. Okay, so hopefully this will, I'm gonna try to bring it closer. Okay, so I'm gonna start and hopefully this will grab the focus. Come on, camera. I love live events. Okay.
There we go.
So there we go.
Right when it gets there, eh?
Okay. So let's try this.
Maybe what we can do
Actually, what I will do, I will go ahead and do this. Okay, this is better. Okay, so now we have a, I'm gonna call this the NYC New York taxi data that has a, I'm gonna try to draw a car. This is a car. Okay, it is.
That works.
It's a wagon. It's streaming data into this publicly available broker, and this is a different version. So this is kind of like a
9.6 or something.
Yeah. So this is a it's a broker that is hosted on a cloud. It's hosted on Azure cloud over here. So what we're doing, Leah, we have a question. And that question is it possible to mesh two brokers
running on different versions? Great question, Vikas. Yes, you can. So what we are actually doing in this demo and what I've already set up is a mesh or the dynamic message routing feature between this broker, which is the New York City broker, which is 9.6, I believe, 9.3, 9.6, somewhere in that range. And I've event mesh connected it to our new broker, which is in Azure West, and that is a 9.8 broker. So you can definitely mesh them together and kind of integrate your older or your existing infrastructure with a new broker that you want to move data to.
9.6, okay, perfect. So this is exactly what you said. There is a 9.6 broker that's already existing in the public cloud. What we're going to do is create a bridge to a version 9.8 broker, and I'm going to call this Leah's broker. And what we're going to do is get the stream of data that we just demoed right now into Leah's broker. And from here, what we want to do, so Leah, now you said you already have kind of the broker, the public broker kind of bridged into your broker. So this means that the stream of live events coming into that publicly available broker could be accessed from your broker, right?
And I like that you said could be accessed, because in terms of if you're thinking about cloud costs, especially on the egress side, there are costs attributed to moving data out of the cloud. And the great part of dynamic message routing, just to note, is we're only going to move that data when someone's subscribed to it. So right now, because I don't have a subscriber on my broker, we're not going to bother moving that.
Okay, yeah, good point. So what do we want to do with the data now that, like, let's say that you have it on your broker? How are we gonna kind of put in practice what Douglas mentioned about the remote delivery point and kind of trigger, Azure functions or any other actually serverless function?
So what we're going to do is create a connector. And so this is creating a REST delivery point, an RDP on my broker. And using the connector functionality, we're going to have that data go into an Azure function. I already have that developed, so we'll have a peek at what I've done there. It's fairly simplistic. But what that Azure function is going to do is it's going to effectively forward that data onto a Power BI dashboard. And then that's where we can kind of play around with the data, add visualizations, whatever you might want to do.
Okay, so let's say we're gonna, from the broker, trigger an Azure function. This is, I'm trying to say that this is an Azure function. And then one of the things we can do is trigger kind of like a Power BI, basically, from this.
That's exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have heard use cases where people, customer of ours, using the Azure function as a entry point into Azure, but then they want to, let's say, only put a certain topic into Databricks so that they can now further look at the data science behind those data, but not everything, right? So the key is that our broker can do the fine filtering on the topic, and then depending on which one that you're interested, to push into many different things that are beyond into the different cloud services. And that's one of the major things, is we're enabling that, like on our side, using the REST delivery point, and just makes it so easy and powerful. And today, I would like to catch somebody. Like, I think the taxi driver, the yellow cap guys are sometimes reckless. So maybe we'll find something interesting.
Yeah, so like what we could do, this actually a very good point, Douglas. Like, let's say that we want to incorporate some sort of like AI and machine learning algorithms on the taxis. You know, we're getting a stream of data from the taxis, and we want to get patterns or trends from the behavior of taxi drivers. One of the things you can do, as you mentioned, is Azure function is just an entry point to the Azure cloud, basically just Azure in general. And you could use any other Azure feature in here that could be triggered from the Azure function. So basically the data that is coming in and there.
Yeah, and sometimes people write it into block storage just to store them, and then they want to do some analysis afterwards, and then they want to do learning. And these are just like many different possibilities that it's now available to you because you have just done the serverless integration. It's just so powerful. I can't, like, there's just so many things. I thought about like a customer of ours before, that they have a lot of chicken farms. And one of the interesting things is that they want to look at the temperature and humidity within the chicken farm, so that the chicken are well and not dying. So, and they don't want to be in that situation all the time. So what they do is they have these IoT sensors that are just very simple thing, sending them the temperature and the humidity level of the farm.
Right.
So all of these thousands of farms just sending out all this information to our broker. And all what we do is just like, we don't want to be notified every time an information change, but we only want to know if the temperature is too high or the humidity is too wet. And then we will have to send a truck and make sure that the chicken are well, and we have the eggs. So that was one of the real example that I was loving. It's just like, it's very simple, but it takes a lot of steps. But then now you're leveraging not just our broker, but then you extend it into the Azure, and then you'll be able to do a lot more things. Let's say sending someone with a tow truck to go to the farm, and that is automatically done. You don't even have to like pick up the phone. Right.
I tried to draw a chicken as you were talking, Douglas. And kind of that's kind of to show that, you know, there's like other IoT devices regardless. Okay, this is looking good, and we're at the half-hour mark. Leah, do you think we want to add anything else to this awesome to the whiteboard design that we have?
I think that's a great depiction of what we're gonna achieve today and have a look at. So I think we can have a look at the actual config and look at how we can get this set up.
Cool. All right. So let's go ahead. Before we jump into the actual live coding, I want to remind anyone who's joining us live on the stream right now. Let us know if you've ever used Azure functions or Lambda functions before. How are you using Solace in your projects if you are, or how are you using a serverless architecture in your projects if you are. And while we're at it, join our Solace community. In our Solace community, we have, I'll quickly go ahead and share my screen on community, solace.community. It's a, we have like a bunch of updates we can get on the community. A lot of people interacting. We have a lot of threads. Even if you have any questions from today's event, you can go ahead and start the discussion, and we will make sure that, you know, we will get to your discussion. We have a bunch of our events as well happening here. So that's kind of a quick shout out to the Solace community. And a question: will this be recorded? Yes, Manish, this will be recorded. You can find this on YouTube as well, on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, Leah, I will go ahead and share your screen, and you could walk us through what you have from the bridge or anything that we did on the whiteboard. So the stage is yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Tamimi.
No worries.
So what I have here is my Azure broker. So as depicted on that whiteboard, it's Leah's broker. And you can see down here at bottom left, this is a 9.8 broker. So we do have access to this new connector functionality. The New York City Modern Taxi Co. again was on 9.6. And what I've set up between that 9.6 broker and this 9.8 broker is DMR. And so what that means is data is able to move from the New York City Taxi Co. Broker to my broker, and actually vice versa. It's a bidirectional communication between these two brokers if you need that. We're going to really be looking at unidirectional today because I want to consume that New York City Modern Taxi Co., have that go through the connector, and be consumed through an Azure function via Power BI dashboard. So what I'm going to look at right here really quick is go into this message VPN. So this basically allows for multi-tenancy. And if I go into the connectors tab, this is where we can create a connector to our Azure function. So pretty simple, it's pretty easy. We go to click to connect here. Currently there's AWS and Azure, and we're gonna click on Azure here and click on the Azure functions option. At the bottom here, we're going to click on Authenticate, and then we can give our connector a name. So call this private session. And then for the Azure function URL itself, I'm going to go to my Azure dashboard and get the function URL. So typically you're going to see that, if I click OK here, just at the top, once you create your new Azure function, you can click on there, copy to clipboard, and we're just going to bring this over, paste this into the URL.
And one tip I want to give it here is that for the name of the connector, one of the problems that we have listened to our customers, the fact that when you have created many of these RDP REST delivering point within the system, you can create up to 200 of them within each broker. It's how to manage them afterwards, because you can name it Leah 1, Leah 2, right? Like over time, you're going to have a lot of them. And each of the RDP actually has subcomponents of them. You have the REST consumer, you have the queue. So one of the best thing about this wizard here that you're using is that it would actually automatically and group these under the same name that you have set up. So the name that you have there will be the prefix of all those components that you're going to that they're going to create automatic for you. So that's going to be all organized within the same tree.
That's a great point. Yeah. So if I ever want to go back and look at any of the objects that are created related to this specific connector, I can certainly just look for the live coding session key name, and that will bring up all those different objects. It's a great.
Leah, a quick question. So now here you put the Azure function URL. Again, I might have missed it. So did you already have your Azure function configured and set up, and you got that URL from your Azure function configuration, basically, or your management window?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can do it with Microsoft Azure. You can create a pretty simple Azure function that does an trigger, which is what we're looking at today. You can create a pretty simplistic one within the actual Azure kind of dashboard itself. What I've done, because I've added a little bit of data transformation here, is I've actually done it in Visual Studio and basically published it into my account. So this is my actual Azure function code here. And the transformation I'm doing is basically taking that JSON data for the New York City Modern Taxi Code data and basically flattening that JSON. So when there's different levels, for example, if I go to here, scroll down, we can see there's a couple different levels here. We've got driver, and then within that, the driver ID, rating, etc. I'm basically just flattening that so Power BI can later parse that and look at all these different points. So that's a simple transformation you could do within your Azure function if you decided that was necessary.
Perfect.
Within here as well, I've got my Power BI URL. So this is how the data is being basically REST posted onwards to Power BI so I can consume that data through dashboards and reports.
Wow, one stone, two birds. Basically, you set up your dashboard within the same function, and you actually even parse it and transform it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty simplistic. All of it's being done in one simple
Right.
application here, and it's pretty short, as you can see. So, it didn't take too long to create that and set that up.
Nice.
Yeah, so once you publish that in, it looks similar in terms of the dashboard. You get this same kind of concept here. Again, you just click the get function URL and copy that piece and paste that into your connector Azure function URL field here. Once you've got that, you can click connector setup. And if you want, you can verify that everything looks correct. So this is my Azure namespace host and my Azure function and key. So this is basically parsed out of the Azure function URL that I pasted in previously. You can also modify some of the connection behaviors for this specific client, and that's just basically up to how you want this client to behave.
Yeah, and I just want to make a point about the access key there. So a lot of time people create credential for the access key so that they can actually monitor it. So one of the best practices is that, like, probably you have an Azure administrator that is responsible for it, and you can ask for a key that is being generated for you instead of you going into your own Azure account to create one. And that really sets up the governance about that data set, right? So that's not, like, let's say when Tamimi go and create one token, it will be his name on it, right? So when the administrator created that, then they can actually govern and make sure that everybody that is supposed to have access to that token get access to it, and for how long that they're supposed to get that access to. Let's say, I think Azure, you can set them up to a year or sometime on expire. You can do it anytime. But what I like, some of the best practice that we have heard is just really you want to use a governed one, and then you also set a time expiry on that access key.
Mm-hmm. Leah, we have a question, and again, I know the answer to it, but I would like to start a discussion for this. Is why would I go to the Click to Connect tab and kind of choose Azure functions in the connector side? I can just expose Azure functions via an API gateway. And that's a very good question. So I'll let you and Douglas kind of like talk about this.
Yeah, so the benefit of using, first of all, the broker to help establish that connection and having us post right into the Azure function is when you send the data to the broker, you might not just want it for this Azure function. You might want to use that data in multiple different ways within that Azure instance. So when it gets to the broker allows you to fan that data out to multiple different places, whether that's an Azure function for Power BI, or maybe it's data lake storage, blob storage, whatever you might be looking at there. As well, the other benefit is the broker can do that protocol translation. So if that data is actually being originally published via MQTT or Solace message format, SMF, then the broker can do that protocol translation for you and then further pass that on to an Azure function to do any enrichment of the data if you would like, and do anything else you want to do with that data, move that to Power BI, etc.
Exactly. And I want to add the point about like the queue. So one of the component that is automatically generated for you after this connector is a queue. And with that queue, like Leah said, you can now share that information within that queue with other consumer, like even outside of this RDP. So it's just another way for you to grab something, put it into our broker, and then you can now fan it out like in many different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and the queue also acts as a buffer, if you will. So if we have a lot of data coming in and we want to load balance that among different Azure functions or within different REST consumers, we can do that and allow the queue to kind of buffer that data for us so we can make sure we don't lose anything there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for answering this, Leah and Douglas and Manish. Thank you very much for asking this question. And we'll be doing more, like we already have some code labs and tutorials talking about the API gateway, and I'm planning to kind of do more. We are planning to do more kind of events about different features within the broker. So that's kind of like one of the many features that you can do. This is why Solace PubSub Plus is an advanced message broker, not just a regular message broker. So back to you, Leah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so once you verified all these details on the connector setup page, we can go to subscription setup. And this is basically adding the subscription for the data that you would like to move to, in this case, an Azure function. So because we want that New York City modern taxi code data, I can, well, if I can copy this here, copy this topic and come back over here. I'm actually going to put a wildcard and actually listen to the exact same thing as Tamimi was listening to before on that Try Me tab. So the same data set's going to be coming into my broker. And create and enable connector. We wait just a moment, and it's actually gone in and created all of these different objects for us. So we can see everything is up. If I click exit on this page, we can see my live coding session connector is right here. Click on that, and we can see all of the different objects that are associated with it. And the name of them is going to be, as Douglas said, related to the connector name I provided. So the live coding session is provided in each of these names for the REST consumer, the queue, the actual REST Delivery Point client or RDP client. So it's very easy to go in and find all of these different assets or all these different objects.
Yeah, and one other thing too, you can go back up one level. You can just check this. Let's say anything went wrong, right? And then you can just click the left-hand side box of that connector, and you go to action on the top, and then you can just delete the whole thing, right? So it will actually clean out all the component that was created for you, with the exception of the queue, because the queue might be used by other things, so that's why we don't delete it automatically. But basically, it's a good cleanup. Like I've had customer that told me that they have like over thousands of these RDP within different broker, and then it's just like over time, it's very unmanageable. So this is one of the reasons why we have these kind of UX enhancement to make sure that the experience is even better.
That's a great point, and it does clean it up quite well. Like if I have all these objects here, and then you multiply that by 100 different REST delivery points or REST consumers, that's a lot of different objects. So that makes it so convenient to clean things up as I need to. And it's just a lot better of a way to manage all of the different objects that are available.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we've got our connector set up here. Only took a moment there. And what that's now going to be doing is, first of all, the data is now moving across from the New York City Modern Taxi Co. Broker in Azure East, moving across to Azure West into my broker, and is going to be consumed by my Azure function. Now, in my Power BI workspace here, I do actually have the taxi speed data kind of pre-populated, because if you did see this payload, there's a lot of stuff. So it did take a minute to kind of map everything into Power BI. So I thought I'd kind of save us that time. But what you can see here is I've mapped all of the different fields and associated what type of field that is, okay, what type the value is. So what I'm going to do is take my taxi speed data, and I'm going to create a new report.
Leah, I'm just going to quickly kind of go over the whiteboard just very quickly to show what we've done to date. So I'm going to bring this here. So like up until now, we already have the existing stream of data coming. We added the bridge in there. We configured the RDP right now. You see that was very quick. And we have the RDP kind of connected to the Azure functions. Now what we want to do, so we created the connector and we were able to connect to the Azure function. Now it's all a matter of, hey, if you are an Azure whiz, you can figure out how to like do a lot of access to Azure functionalities. What we're going to demo today is kind of show you how you can populate a Power BI dashboard, for example, with your Azure function, using the data that was being, using the stream of data from any of the IoT devices, your cabs or your chicken, into the already existing brokers. So back to you, Leah.
No chickens today. We're looking at cab data.
Okay.
What I've done here is created a report based off of that taxi speed data set. So what that's done on the right-hand side is kind of pre-referenced all of the different data fields that is expected in that message that's going to be coming through. And what I was thinking of doing here is let's kind of create a table to flag drivers who are speeding. Speeding is obviously dependent on what street they're on, etc. But because they're in New York City, let's assume about a 25 mile per hour, give or take.
That reminds me of Die Hard movie. How fast the driver is going to be zooming through.
Some of these drivers are driving pretty fast, I will say. But
while you're doing this connection, a quick question came in. We could answer. It'll be a quick answer. So can I also use here an event mesh to collect the taxi data from a different data center?
So yeah, you could. If you have the data in a data center rather than a cloud region or even a different cloud provider, you can definitely connect in the event mesh to wherever you might want it. So let's say you have your Azure East and Azure West brokers as we have here. If we also had an on-premises or data scenario, and we could just spin up a broker there, and that could be in software via Docker or some kind of a hypervisor if you wanted. And you simply establish the connection between that broker and then one or both of these Azure instances. And yeah, the data will move between those three places seamlessly. And it's all based off of the subscriptions that are on those brokers at any point. So that's definitely possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah, for answering this.
Perfect. Right. So what I've done here is I've put a table on our report. I've clicked a couple of the different fields that I want to note. So driver first name and last name and the speed at which they are driving. So you can kind of see it's already populated this. Now, one thing I've noticed with Power BI is it does, first of all, it typically summarizes the data. So I don't want it to summarize because if we have a driver driving multiple times, I want to make sure it's just the single instances of those. And then I want to have this dashboard kind of flag if they're greater than 25, let's say it's miles per hour, and then we will make sure we only see the data for drivers that are driving faster than 25 miles per hour. So you can see you can expand this report as needed based off of this data that is streaming in via the app.
This is very cool. Like, I really want to point out that this is a stream of data, like that is coming into the, so like, I just want to put it in perspective. If this data is already existing in a database, for example, that is data at rest, you're going to have to configure your Azure function to constantly pull the data if there's any update in the database, to constantly pull, because like dealing with data at rest that's already existing in the database and trying to pre-populate it into a dashboard, that could be very difficult and challenging when you have to constantly pull in the data, and it could be expensive, time consuming. So right now here, the data is only being, or the Azure function is only being triggered when there is an update in the data from the stream. And to be even more precise, when there's a match on the filter that you created in your subscription topic. So let's say that you don't want to, as Douglas has mentioned earlier, you don't want to trigger your Azure functions for every update of the data. Then you could fine tune your Solace subscription, your subscription topic, based on like wildcards and different kind of the topic hierarchy that you created. If you followed like the topic hierarchy best practices, you would be able to fine tune what are the topics that you want to subscribe to, and then your Azure functions will trigger, or like anything that you connected to your RDP will trigger based on any event that comes in. And this really does fill a gap in the BI field and dashboarding field, which is real-time data analytics. Power BI or any other dashboarding or a business intelligence tool, they are very powerful when it comes to analyzing the data that's already existing at rest. So you would connect your Power BI instance or your any other BI tool to a database that has this data, and it would do the dashboarding. But what if you want to have the latest up-to-date data in your Power BI dashboard, and you want to trigger kind of like an update every time there's an update. So here, what Leah was showing us is, for example, just created a table that shows or puts the data in a table format. But you can see that there's so much potential. We're literally just scratching the surface here, and this is the tip of the iceberg.
And I think one other point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Leah.
Go ahead, Douglas.
I was going to say the other point is that because it's streaming data set, like you said, we don't store any of these in Azure, so there's no cost for storing all these data. Like imagine like sometime like we have to stream everything, and then we put into the block storage, and then we have to pay for the block, and then we do the analysis. In this case, because we're using streaming, no cost on the storage. But if you want to, I can just select a topic that I want to store. Let's say, like, I don't know, the overall summary of at the end of the month, I want to store all the taxi data driver on the total mileage and total cost. That could be stored, but not the streaming on who is speeding, because that is like happening every minute. And if I store them at the end, it's like, what am I going to do with that data that is being stored and costing me?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is very, very, very good point that you brought up, Douglas, is if you have an event-driven architecture, if you adopt an event-driven architecture in your projects or in your department, then let's say that you created this end-to-end use case of streaming data into your dashboard, and down the road, let's say you get a new business requirement to store data into a database. All you got to do is just add another microservice that connected to the broker and subscribe to the same topic, and that microservice will do any other business-related use case without even affecting any of your already existing architecture from the streaming data into your Azure function. So you're literally just adding yet another connection to the broker and get that. So back to you.
And that's the beauty of PubSub, and that's kind of where our product name came from, PubSub Plus. So we do that fan out of data. So if you want to add multiple consumers, you can easily do that. You can simply set up a connector as I've done here. And the plus is obviously because, as Tamimi said, advanced event broker, we have a lot of functionality added in here to provide you with a lot of different, message consumption patterns or message handling patterns, whatever you might be looking for. I think the reason I chose Power BI today is it's more visual. So it's something that we can look at, something that we can see the data coming in. But obviously, a lot of real-time use cases would be putting this into Azure Data Lake or some kind of storage, or sending this to machine learning. And the beauty about machine learning is you can do your machine learning processing, and any kind of outcomes of that, you can republish that back onto the Solace broker and consume that again in a PubSub fashion. So fan out, you publish it once, and it can be consumed here on Azure West or Azure East or on-premise, wherever you want to consume that data.
Yeah, and one best practices tip that I can share from storage perspective is that there are different types of charging from these cloud services. Some of these storage could be based on number of write, and some of them are based on the total number of sites that you're writing to them. So MongoDB, for example, would be only charging you by the size, that at the end how much you're writing to it. So just depending on your use case, take advantage of which one would save you more. And obviously, one of the latest comments about streaming data consuming memory. Yeah, it's going to be like you're just going to pick which one is. I think all the time one of the key goals from IT perspective is to, when you move things to the cloud, the number one goal from the CIO is to how much are we saving from infrastructure perspective. I think our broker enables that a lot, and in today's demo, we just make sure that like you understand that we're not trying to say which one is the best. We're just making sure now we have an integration arm into Azure on these serverless architecture, and you can do a lot of things. This is just one example that we've come up with today. I'm sure there's so much
even
more.
from a dashboarding perspective.
Exactly.
We're
not
I know
dashboarding
Leah
expert.
has a lot of things planned, prepared to show us what are the different things you can do from a dashboarding perspective.
Yeah, and I was gonna kind of sneak over to give you the dashboard I kind of pre-created. So this is kind of the real-time quick creation. It's kind of ugly, but you can see what can be done in just a matter of really a few seconds. If I move over to my we won't save that, that's fine. If I move over to my taxi data dashboard here and let that load in, we can kind of see the different data that's coming in here. We can see the driver location, because in this data, we do have a latitude, longitude value in both the topic and in the data itself. So we can take advantage of those data fields in the overall message. We can see drivers that have a rating underneath under 3.0. So we either want to have a conversation with them or on that. Again, we can see our drivers who are speeding over 25 miles per hour. Apparently, we've got some really bad drivers here who are going 300.
300. Oh my goodness.
that might be my dashboarding skills, I will admit.
Oh, they're filming like Die Hard 4 there.
Yeah. Someone's speeding. They, what is it? Drag racing at night. Maybe that's good too. Passenger rating, I've created a dashboard on that to see if there's any passengers that have a rating that is below 3. Thankfully, none. They've all been charming. But we can do and build out with really that one data set. So this is really one Azure function, one REST delivery point created through the click to connect. So as a connector, so the amount that you can expand on this is kind of infinite.
Limitless. Yeah, you can do so much about it. Yeah,
you can. Cool. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what I had to show you as just a tiny peek at how powerful this connector is, and of course we've been focusing on Azure, but we've got AWS support in there as well, and
Google is coming. So on the roadmap side, just we're planning obviously to support the main free vendor out there. So we already support the AWS API gateway that you can connect to the Lambda function in the current 9.8 release, and then as you have shown, the 9.8 also support the Azure Event Hubs, Service Bus, and the Azure Functions. And right up next, with the next release, we're targeting to have support on the Google functions there. So really, we continue building our kind of our integration journey for our customer to create all of these integration arm into different cloud services, and that's our main goal. Yeah.
And Leah, we got a comment saying that you're awesome with dashboarding skills, even apart from your solid skills. You have great dashboarding skills as well. So don't undermine your dashboarding skills. Oh,
thanks
man.
For that comment.
Thanks, Manish. This is great. I am super happy to kind of like have showcased this because we're able to show how easy it is to set up kind of like an end-to-end. I'm going to share switch my camera again to show the dash, the screen here. Like this one, like we could see how easy it was to go through this from chicken to Power BI, basically. You know what? That should be the name of the event, from chicken to Power BI. when chickens and Power BI meet, or like chicken to Azure functions. But yeah, like it's just like that integration. We showcased a couple of features. We showcased the bridging functionality of 2 different brokers of different versions. We had the 2 different versions of the broker. We showcased the RDP functionality of the broker, some filtering functionality of the broker as well, and a protocol translation. We got this using a, let's say if you have kind of any other Solace API or any other protocol that you have, you can still kind of use it here. And then we were able to literally just touch on some Azure functionalities, even though this is not our area of specialty, but we were able to kind of show how you could trigger other things. Now imagine this with different other function as a service platforms or serverless architecture, whether it's Lambda functions. You can literally have a polyglot of different cloud providers, and each cloud provider, let's say you're using AWS for AI and machine learning, you're using Azure for dashboarding connecting to Power BI, and you want to trigger different things. This is also like this is a very common behavior and a very common approach in enterprise and in the actual kind of market, where people use a multi-cloud strategy. You're using different clouds, you're using different functionality. Maybe AWS has a better, for example, AI, ML integrations, and Azure has any other kind of different integration, and you want to leverage both features and functionalities. This is where the power of a Solace broker, an advanced measure broker in your mix, that would really help out with this. So that's kind of the thing that we had for today. I will go ahead and share my camera again. So yeah, I wanted to kind of bring. I know we still have 20 more minutes left. We're right on time, like for any other questions or any other things people want to ask. But this is great. Like, Leah, thanks for this demo. Douglas, thanks for putting in your input on comments on different things as we were going through. I'd like to open this up before the closing points to you both, to Douglas and Leah. Do you have any other points that you wanted to add? Any other things that you wanted to say? I'd love to give out shirts for everyone as well. So stay tuned. But yeah,
Basically, when you join your community, you get a swag from you, right?
Yeah. Join the community and you'll get the swag. I know Manish has been very active with us. I'm giving you a shout out. Leah, if you can share your dashboard again, we have a questions for people sharing their dashboard. So I'll keep this here. And as you know, Douglas and Leah, if you have any other kind of like points, any final like points?
Yeah, I think one of the key thing I want to drive at home is that we have only shown you one out of the many integration arms, right? This is only the REST protocol that we are extending. If you don't mind, Tamimi, go back to the connector hub page, and that is the place that I would recommend again over and over. Like, we have more than just the broker integrated REST connector. We have also, if you're in a different space, you have already other like architecture they want to make use of. We also, from a connector perspective, you can create different arms into Kafka. You can do it in a Apache Beam or on the Google. So these are many things that are available on the right hand side. If you look at a connector type, these are the different things that we have available all onto this page, right? As you can see, the broker integrated one is the one that we demonstrated today, and there's an external embedded one, which is all the like Apache Beam, Kafka one that we have developed. So those are more high performance direct integration. There's a component that you install, and these just all goodie things that we keep providing and improving from our perspective to end user, so that they will never really have a challenge in terms of integrating our broker. And then the last one, we have all our partnership. If you find something, let's say you're going to put on the Boomi in this case. So we're just showcasing everything from a connector hub perspective. I just really want to hit that home. We've only shown you one out of the many today, and feel free and definitely encourage everybody to check this page out. We continue to update this information here, and then you're gonna see a lot more things coming up here for sure.
Great. I guess I wanted to point out, how can you get started with this setup, and maybe Tamimi, you can show the developer page, and the marketplace, of course, is that real-time data that we are streaming to represent this use case, this modern taxi co. Unfortunately, no chickens involved here, but if you want to take advantage of that data, you can consume it as stated on that modern taxi co. Page, or you can set up your own broker. We have a free standard edition, and you can set that up on your own, or you can sign up for Solace Cloud and kind of play around with the data and the broker itself. The connector functionality, I would recommend you probably stand up your own broker at this point, but it should be available on the cloud pretty soon, I would expect. Perfect. You can see this dashboard. Hit refresh again here.
Yeah, and as Lee has mentioned, you can go to download your local broker as well. You could do it on Docker, or you could and as well join our Solace community to get the latest access on this. Yeah, this is kind of the things that you can do and integrate with. Leah, maybe you want to show your dashboard one more time. If you have anything else you want
to. Aaron's requesting the dashboard.
Yes.
So here's that dashboard again. Currently, it doesn't auto refresh, so I'm going to hit refresh on there, and we can see kind of some of these numbers will update as we go. This is
right.
106,000 total rides given. At least that I've had this dashboard set up and connected on here today, and you can see how many speeding drivers we have.
Right.
A few. I think we need to talk to this driver, whoever's going 300.
And I really want to do a chicken related event, probably trying to kind of like do some IoT monitoring. Thanks, yeah, for this, Douglas. Like now it's just like stuck in my mind
It's
right
stuck
now.
in your mind, right? You gotta
That's
save
it.
the chicken. You gotta save
Yeah,
the chicken.
you know when they tell you think about anything but a chicken, and all I can think of is a chicken. That's it. Yeah.
Well, let me give you a trivia question then. So we're in
Okay.
Ottawa. Like I don't know if anybody knows. Like we actually have. What is the to-do thing in Ottawa in the winter? You gotta have to. You gotta see it. You gotta try it. It's a thing that is actually only 2 places in the world has that, and we in Ottawa has that in the winter.
Are they like beaver tails?
Beaver tail is a component of that. You can have the beaver tail when you're doing that activity.
Skating on the canal.
Exactly. I don't know if anybody knows. Ottawa has the biggest outdoor skating rink in the world in the winter, and it's 8.8 kilometers long, and you can just go one way for hours. Like so, if you're an expert skater, like you just go nuts, right? And then the other places in China, where it's cold enough that the whole canal is frozen, and then you can actually just skate on it, right? So
yeah, I was skating there over the weekend as well.
I guess I should add some light onto the beaver tail. It's not an actual beaver's tail.
Yeah, it's a deep fried dough with many different topics that you can put it on. Like it's sweet.
Yeah, sweet treat.
It's a sweet treat. Yes, not a beaver tail.
It looks like a beaver tail because it's flat and
Okay, well, great. Thanks for everyone. Manish is preparing dinner because I mentioned chicken.
Butter chicken. I love that.
Butter chicken.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks Leah and Douglas. Thanks again for
having me.
Being part of this event, making it successful. Anybody as well who's watching us, thanks again. Make sure to, even if you have any questions, put it in the chat or go to the Solace community, put it in the chat over there, start a thread, sign up for the Solace community. And I am so happy that we were able to get this up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyways, thanks everyone. And Leah and Douglas, you can stay on for a bit, but we are ending the broadcast. And again, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to put it on the chat here on the Solace community. Leah, Douglas, and myself are on the Solace community as well, so you can catch us there. All right, thanks everyone. Take care.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care.